It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show for Tuesday. So happy it's Tuesday, August 5th. And tomorrow, it'll be an interesting day. We have to dedicate some time in possibly B and C block about tomorrow's significance as far as the date's concerned. Do you know about that, John?
Yeah, it's the beginning of the Washington Town and Country Fair, Brad.
That's not it.
That's not it?
That's not it. Okay, it's the B block, which means we start this about 7:20. And by the way, for those of you listening live, you know we're on the air live, streaming, and on over-the-air OTA at 104.5 KSOQ. We call it West Plus Talk. But the reason I mention that is because a lot of people listen to the future on bjshow.co, bjshow.us. So if I get the date, it gives them some reference as to what we're talking about. But it's time for
Brad's Top 3.
I didn't give John a chance to make fun of my jingle there.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
You almost got it. Okay, we start off with...
It's number 3.
This involves John Combest and his buddy Vladimir Hedgeye. There's an interesting story about the American Eagle stock soaring, so we say, and even Trump being involved in this. John, where do you stand on American Eagle stock? Do you have any?
No, I don't own any American Eagle stock, no.
Now, why is that?
Brad, I generally tend to focus on sectors in which I'm more familiar and that I know. And frankly, Brad, because of some things that you and I've had going on with the station lately, I haven't dedicated a lot of time to, I guess I would say, short-term. I hate when people talk about stock trading. Men, stop talking about stock trading. Nobody's impressed. I would just say, Brad, I've spent less time watching the day-to-day fluctuations of the market. For example, I used to listen every day to a 30-minute call from Hedgeye, and kind of because of some of the stuff you and I have going on with the station and priorities, I don't do that anymore. But I'm generally familiar with what's been going on with American Eagle, and with Sydney Sweeney and a renewed interest in their stock.
Okay, now, here's my question for you, being a guy who knows a fair amount about the equity markets, okay?
Yeah.
And also drawing upon your comms background of being involved with the big companies, Monsanto, then Bayer. Is the Sydney Sweeney thing a good thing or bad thing? And the fact that now the president has weighed in, and I don't know if you've heard the latest thing, apparently she lived in Florida, and she registered as a Republican, and Trump is all over that. Is this a good or bad thing for American Eagle?
Oh, I think I think overall it's a positive thing. And I think you have renewed interest, Brad. You've pointed out many times on the show the Gary V line of attention is currency.
Yes.
And so a lot of folks, for example, I'm not an American Eagle customer demographic now. I'm a middle-aged man, but my kids are entering the age in which American Eagle will soon become an important brand to them. And I think a lot of people like me, Brad, I haven't given more than 60 seconds of thought to American Eagle in a decade. And now everybody's talking about it. People are familiar with the brand. I think it's overwhelmingly a positive thing. The downside of this, Brad, is that at least on the financial side, when you have a lot more trading volume, so I don't know what the trading volume has been over the last 3 weeks. I assume it's been magnitudes greater than it has been. People have unrealistic expectations. So if shares were up nearly 25% yesterday, let's call it, I think I saw like 23%. If shares are up 25%, then a lot of people who are amateurs in the market will assume that in a year, the stock will be up 25,000%. So I think the biggest challenge is managing expectations.
Interesting. Because of the fact that, when Trump gets involved, the way they call it. Remember Trump's first term? Remember all the naysayers saying, oh, if he's elected president in 2016, the stock market would crash and our finances will be rubble and will be in the ruins. And then, what was it, like first 6 months of his presidency, the stock market went up like 4,000 points or something crazy like that?
Yeah. And also, just on the same note, before we move on to number 2, the idea is if you work for a creative agency that's part of American Eagle, or you work on their social media or comms team, the intensity of your life has ratcheted up significantly over a period of time. So what will you do with this attention? And I think if you're American Eagle, you're able to look every day literally every day at what foot traffic is like in your store, what sales are like in various areas. And you're seeing, their next quarterly conference call will be fascinating because we'll see how much of a spike this really had in terms of what it means for their bottom line.
On a side note with this, Clay Travis of the Clay and Buck show yesterday has talked about this a couple times. I heard him talking about this yesterday because they're talking about the American Eagle stock. He said the best job he ever had in his life was when he was a teenager in high school. He worked at the American Eagle store in a mall in the Nashville area. He's a native of Nashville. And he said the thing was, he says, do you know why he said it was the best job he ever had?
Oh, well, because girls come in there.
Yes, he said.
It'd be like working in Abercrombie and Fitch.
He worked there too, but he said the American Eagle was better. He said the women, he said, and the girls would come in and he'd talk them up. Oh, look at this. You look great in this. Oh, thank you so much. And he said, and then he talks about for lunch, he'd go down to Chick-fil-A. Remember, that's where Chick-fil-A started in the malls.
Or Sbarro.
Right. He'd go to Sbarro or Chick-fil-A in the malls, and then he'd go back to work. And I'm thinking to myself, I think of my days at Steak and Shake, and I think that was probably one of the best jobs I had as well, too, because of the fact, sort of the same thing. I was a young guy in high school, and a lot of times you had attractive young girls, some of who I knew from high school, come in and, they'd chat you up. And, matter of fact, I'm not going to say I didn't date one or two of them at the time back in the days.
And Brad, especially for men, it relieves them of approach anxiety.
Yes.
Because it's your job to actually go up and speak to them.
Exactly.
So that because you live this, their defenses are a little bit down because they know you're just doing their job.
Right.
And so you're not a random guy at a bar, you're their server.
Right. I'm their server. And if I do a good job, and by the way, the only downside was the women were the worst tippers, but that's a whole nother story. But that's just the way it was. Trust me on that one. Number 2.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
It is. And we have to say it twice.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
An interesting story on Missouri Independent yesterday. As a matter of fact, I sent this to a couple of my friends, and I already got an interesting response from one of them in another city, believe it or not. And the story is from Missouri Independent, and it's about not-for-profit hospitals spending huge dollars on naming rights of athletic facilities. Did you see this story, John?
No, I didn't see him. I'm guessing, so it's not from Missouri Independent. I'm guessing it's from State Line or a national group.
Yeah, well, it was on the Missouri Independent website. So
it was on their site, but they didn't write it. Okay, well, tell us about it.
Okay, there's growing controversy. Let me pull it up right here, see if I can get real quick. Let me see who actually wrote this.
It was
story.
from Anna Claire Vollers, who works for State Line. I was correct, yeah.
Okay. Healthcare systems and hospital groups have bought naming rights at ballparks and arenas in states such as California, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. And the point being is it's raised eyebrows because these are not-for-profit hospitals that are spending 6 and sometimes 7, even 8 figures for naming rights for athletic facilities. And some people are saying like, well, now, hold on a minute now. They're a not-for-profit. And what do they counter with? What do the not-for-profits counter with?
Hey, we're doing a public service. We don't make any money.
Well, no, they're essentially saying it's a competitive marketplace. We have to keep our name out there.
Yeah, now, Brad, this combines a lot of stuff that you hate. Team owners making millions or billions and nonprofits. I mean, this is for you like watching me see the Cubs play the Mets. Like, who do you root against?
Right. Okay. Let me just read you one paragraph from the story. Unlike their for-profit counterparts, not-for-profit hospital systems don't have to pay most taxes. What do I talk about all the time? In return, they're required to give back to the community by offering free or discounted care and by focusing their resources on underserved areas. Typically, they allocate fewer dollars to advertising and marketing. Some local officials in states such as Tennessee and California have criticized not-for-profit system stadium sponsorships as a poor use of funds, arguing the money would be better spent improving or expanding access to care. Hospital counters that they must stay competitive in the marketplace and that sponsorships help them integrate more deeply into the communities. It's almost every day I come across, and unfortunately, I have a good friend who runs a not-for-profit. And from time to time, her and I will get together and discuss things. And it's interesting because she's on my side. And she tells me stuff going on. Now, and what's interesting was, and I'm not trying to say that, it's like her calling the kettle black. She runs a relatively very small not-for-profit. But she's in that ecosphere, so to speak, of all the not-for-profits, and she tells me stories that just make me PO'd, if you know what I'm talking about the money that's spent on things and the attitude and oh, hey, we're a not-for-profit. And it's almost to the point where if you like read the between the lines of what comes out of some of the not-for-profit religious broadcasters, like the ones we're going after, KDHX, K-Love, Educational Media Fund, and even KWMU. Oh, we're not-for-profit. We're part of the university system, but they're not going to be soon. But it just drives me nuts because of the fact that you and I know you do and I do. I pay real estate taxes in 4 different counties, okay? 4 different counties. And when I get my tax bill, I look at that allocation. You know what I'm talking about? You look at that, so much went to this, so much went to that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I could cut out that, 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 and that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but if you don't have to trim the fat, why would you ever trim the fat?
Well, see, but the frustrating thing for me is the not-for-profits, real estate taxes, they dial 911, the police or fire and ambulance show up. They didn't pay for that. You and I do, right?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, but isn't that the joy of being a nonprofit, Brad? And they're doing stuff for the greater good. Meanwhile, Brad Hildebrand's over there plotting Jaguar commercials for Sydney Sweeney.
The greater good. K-Love, Educational Media Fund, playing contemporary Christian music. That's the greater good.
Yeah, it's inspirational, Brad. And have you ever seen anybody with a Joy 99.1 sticker cut anybody off in traffic?
All the time, John.
Brad, they're the best drivers on the road. I don't know where you've been.
Time for number 1.
And now, Big Finish, Brad's number.
My number 1 this morning comes from an unusual source. I don't normally bring this up, but interesting article in the St. Louis Business Journal about a real estate developer who is essentially putting his apartment tower into receivership. Do you know this story, John?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's a story about, it says a 20-story downtown St. Louis apartment tower is headed toward receivership after its owner defaulted on its loan for the building. Just the latest property owner in the struggling district to fail to meet lending terms. Fannie Mae, which holds the note for 515 Olive Street in July, filed a petition in St. Louis Circuit Court to appoint a receiver for the 92-unit apartment building known as Gallery 515. Its petition says Gallery 515 owners, Brandon View 4 LLC, tied to Brian Hayden, has defaulted on the building's mortgage. Okay, the article goes on to talk about, and here's the crazy thing. I know exactly which building 515 is. 515, what did I say? 515 Olive, is that the one I gave?
Yeah, that's the one. Yep.
Okay. And the interesting part of the story, it goes on to talk about all these downtown office buildings are mostly apartment buildings now. Did you know this?
No, I had no idea.
Well, it talks about the fact that he also owns, they tried to sell it in March for $15.8 million. And it says he also includes offices in the Laclede, apartments and offices in the Laclede Gas Building, 720 Olive, Gallery 1014 to 1014 Locust Street, Gallery 400, 555 North 4th Street, and Gallery Villas 511 Olive. These are all office buildings that have been converted, at least to some part, to apartments.
Well, it's better than commercial real estate, isn't it? Nobody works in an office anymore, Brad.
Yes, where we have the story that the AT&T building, which was like 1 million square feet, sold for what, $3 million?
Yeah, it was for nothing.
What does that give it to, about like 3 cents a square foot or something like that?
So.
I mean, and first off, I go back to this, and the article sort of hedges, or not hedge-eye, it hedges around various things and talks about the fact that, as a matter of fact, he's essentially saying, he made the strategic decision to request receivership for Gallery 515. He says this allows for the property to be managed by experts who can navigate this current market challenges more effectively, ensuring its stability and positioning it for future success. It's important to note that this decision was not made lightly and part of a broader strategy to manage my portfolio in a way that benefits both the properties and the community. Okay, John, they mention it briefly in one of the paragraphs. And what's the problem with people renting apartments in downtown St. Louis, John? Can you imagine one?
I'll go out on a limb and say safety and crime.
Yes, exactly. I don't understand this. I will never understand the situation. If you've got the downtown area, which has gotten a horrible black eye with all the crime and all the weird stuff that goes on down there, why in the world wouldn't you, using a term, a sports term, flood the zone? You know what I mean? Flood the zone with the
I do know what you mean. Just for one, and not to interrupt, but to flood the zone would mean you would have a lot of police officers in a in a small condensed area to let people know, look, right here is safe. Whether you're at the stadium or whether you're at the Arch, this area is safe.
Yes, exactly. And essentially, I can pretty much tell you the dimensions would be, the west would be Tucker, to the south would be like Choteau, to the north would be like maybe even as far north as, I don't know, St. Louis Avenue might be too far north. But essentially, if you just took that area and said, okay, we're not going to double the police protection, we're going to 10x it, maybe 20x it, maybe 50x it. And the point being, remember we talked about this 2 or 3 weeks back. Who is it? Fitch, who's on the county council?
Yeah, about the officers coming in from other municipalities.
Right. I never even knew this. He said that under state law, the city of St. Louis could hire off-duty police officers from the county and from the adjoining collar counties, from Jefferson, St. Charles, Franklin, Warren. They could hire those people as extra secondary duty, and essentially they're already licensed in the state of Missouri. There would be some rules and regulations they'd have to enact in the city charter or whatever like that, which wouldn't be too tough for what he said. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't they do it? I don't understand, John. I'll never understand this. And to the point where it's sort of my deal when I have people that question me about the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. My usual answer, you know the story I always talk about, it's the 47th largest city in the country if you take just
right
the population.
Between Tulsa and Minneapolis.
Right, exactly. Okay, the second thing is when you travel and someone says, hey, where are you from? And you say St. Louis, what is usually their response, John?
You should move to Hamburg.
No, they usually say, oh my God.
Are you safe?
Yes.
I had a nephew who lived in Toonerville, and they said St. Louis was unsafe.
Right. Are the riots still going on? Are the people still upset about Michael Brown? Are they still burning down the streets in Ferguson? Oh.
And you say they are. And if you get your knees scraped, you get $190K from the city.
$190K. Okay.
You get $95,000 per knee.
Right, $95,000 per knee. John, what we're going to talk about in C Block again?
We're going to talk about, boy, I have a little touch of Brad Hildebrand going on here. I don't remember what we said in A Block, Brad. Was it Sydney Sweeney?
I don't know.
Because she makes a nice couple, let's be honest.
John, you're the expert of remembering all this stuff. How come you can't remember what we talked about in A Block? That was just one block away.
I didn't write it down because I had I got my glasses broken during a riot, and now I can't see.
Okay, we'll figure out something to talk about.